When people hear home care, they usually think of it as something way bigger than what it is. They think medical care, they think someone's bedbound, they think kind of in extreme scenarios, and that alone can cause someone to just not even want to think about it. So today I want to put that concept or that fear of, if that's a fear that you have, at rest and just help you to better understand what home care actually looks like. Okay, so not theory, not sales for you today, but just clarity as to what home care looks like. So after more than 20 years in this business and helping families to not only bring in care, but again, to decipher and just to figure out how things work and what the landscape looks like, and just being in that advisory role, helping families to sort out what is and what isn't, we really have a passion for teaching and for educating families so that they are functioning from a perspective of actually understanding what's really going on. So good home care is designed to protect independence, not to take it away, allowing somebody to be independent while we're helping with one or two or three things where the independence is ebbing away, it's struggling, right? Because somebody's needing some help with something. So number one misconception that people will have is that home care means someone's taking over my life. Someone's coming in and they're taking over my routine. They're going to do things for me and I am going to be at their will. I am going to be having to answer to what they need from me. And so the truth is, support is selective and customized. So just like I said, when someone has a need with a specific area, that is what we're going to be helping with. We train our caregivers to not to do things and allow somebody to do for themselves all the tasks that they're still independent with, because we want them to retain that ability. Misconception number two is it's only for very sick people. Like I said, someone who's bedbound, somebody who's in some kind of a dire situation. And the reality is that many clients start with just a few hours a week. It may be just a little help to keep the home clean. It may be someone coming over to just strip the linens and wash the sheets and redo the bedding, and just to kind of take care of a few things and maybe run a few errands. Misconception three is that once you start, there's no going back. And so this is probably the biggest one, and this is one that I really struggle with personally when I think about it, because with home care, you could start care and 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, 2 months later, you can say, you know what, I'm doing really great. I actually don't need this help anymore, and that could be it. Now imagine that same scenario if you've made a move into a building. If you've sold your home, you moved into a senior care facility, and 3 months later you're like, you know what, I'm not really into this. Well, it's much harder to unravel that scenario, right? Because you've uprooted everything, and there's probably not a redo or an undo in that situation, whereas home care can be very temporary if that's what somebody wants it to be. It also can be very low level, very minimal for a long time before somebody really needs a lot more and they need to step up and add hours or add actual tasks to the care plan. Okay, so what caregivers actually do. What is the stuff that happens in the home? What is the actual care that's being provided, right? So every client we work with is going to be unique. Every client we work with is going to be an individual. And so the care plan, when it's created for them, is going to take that into account. It's going to look at what the normal routine for this person looks like, and then why are we being brought in? What is the challenge? What is the pain point, or what's happening that the person is actually potentially needing care? First, we'll talk about what are called ADLs, activities of daily living, or we will a lot of times talk about them as personal care, and that would be things like bathing, dressing help, grooming, toileting, mobility support. So just basic things that we all do for ourselves, but as a person ages, because of age and mobility issues, sometimes they become a challenge. Some of these things the person can still do, but because of the fact that these things may present a higher risk to their overall functioning and health, it may be wise, and the family may wisely say, hey, you know what? Mom is still doing her own bath, but we're always nervous when she's in there and there's a potential for a slip and fall in that shower. We would feel much more comfortable if somebody was there, if not to actually do the full-on assist with that shower, to at least be a standby assist or stepping in and stepping out. And again, the caveat here is that having home care and having a caregiver in there is not going to guarantee that there's never a fall. But it is wise to take some of those precautions and do things well in a way that, make sure that you stack the odds in your favor in terms of some of those risk factors. The things I just mentioned, they're probably some of the hardest to talk about, because like when you think about having a caregiver coming in and helping you with a bath, or helping one on and off the toilet, and maybe helping them make sure they clean themselves up well. Those are very intimate things, and to have a caregiver who, of course, initially when we introduce him as a stranger, it's just not a fun concept to go, man, okay, yeah, I'm gonna have somebody help me step in and step out of a shower and really help me clean myself in the areas where I can't quite reach or do things. Not exactly an exciting thought or conversation, but again, we're talking about safety, and we're talking about providing that care in such a way that the dignity is preserved for that person. And obviously that comes with a relationship. So initially, that's why these things can feel and seem like, man, this is just awkward. I don't know how this is going to go. But once that caregiver is introduced and that relationship is formed, it is amazing that the caregivers can come in and assist and help with those things and make sure that the person doesn't feel embarrassed or doesn't feel awkward while being helped with those things. So the right support restores that confidence. It doesn't take it away, right? It restores the confidence that I'm in my own home. I get to do things by my routine. I get to do things the way I like. I get to get up when I like. I get to eat the foods that I prefer. And I get to do what normally it is that I am and what I do. So number 2 is going to be household support. So these are things to kind of upkeep the home. So light housekeeping, laundry, meal preparation, dishes, organizing, whatever, right? The stuff that we all do in our own homes to keep our home fairly clean and organized. This isn't, like when we talk about light housekeeping is not what if any of you are used to having a maid service or a cleaning lady, if you would say that is like, I would joke and I would say what light housekeeping is what you do before the cleaning lady comes, because that's deep cleaning and that's really, really in-depth and maybe on hands and knees or using something. And our light housekeeping is helping you to dust a little bit, running a vacuum a few times a week, making sure that the maintenance of the area is kept up. Laundry alone is a huge help, and especially when it comes to changing sheets and doing the bedding and whatnot, because it becomes very challenging for someone, even if they're still quite able to do things for themselves, but because just of the stretching and the pulling and bending and all that's involved in those things. Some of these tasks or these things can slowly become overwhelming. And so that's where, as a family member, you may notice some of those things not being done, or maybe you're being asked to come and help with that. Come and help me strip the sheets. I want to change my sheets. I want to get that done. And so that's being brought over into your domain. Sometimes some of the smallest daily tasks can create the most stress, because for someone who's actually been a really tidy person, somebody who's really been proud of how they upkeep their home, when they start to struggle with some of these things, it can really rub on them. That when somebody comes to visit, they know that they're not keeping up with their home the way they normally would, and it bothers them. So number 3 is companionship. So I have it listed here as number 3, and I'll explain a little bit. So I really see it as a fundamental aspect of the care that we provide. Now, the reason we don't lead with it is because when we talk to an average person who is thinking about hiring a home care company, they aren't like, I would love a companion in my home, right? They're thinking more practically. They're thinking about, I don't think that taking a bath or a shower by myself is safe. I'd like someone here. And so even if I had something happen, at least someone could be here to call my daughter or an ambulance or maybe help me, right, in that scenario. Companionship is one of those things that people are like, well, I don't want to pay for somebody to come over and be my friend and to spend time with me. But in reality, over the lifetime of the care that we provide, so a lifetime, what I'm talking about is when somebody starts care and they're going to be in that care window. Maybe it's a few months, maybe it's a few years. Believe it or not, we've had many, many clients who we've served for more than 10 years, starting with a little bit and over the years adding and adding to the point where some of them would end up with 24-hour care, and we would be there doing everything for them and making sure that they were okay and safe. But companionship, once the care starts and once the relationship with the caregiver is formed, that companionship becomes so fundamental and so apparent, right? Like they'll say, well, yes, Gail helps me with lots of different things, but I really enjoy Gail's company. I really enjoy when she comes over and we can talk about my day, and it just lifts my spirits when we can have that connection. So you need to understand, when you're the younger generation, when you're the adult child generation, right? Most of us are in a space where we've got plenty of companionship. We've got plenty of friends and business or work associates, and there's all these people. Sometimes we may frankly be looking for a little window of like just alone time. I remember way back a long time ago, I was in retail, and I would have a short break. I would go up to the food court and I would grab a meal and I would sit and I would just sit there and kind of zone out and would eating my meal. And sure enough, there would be another mall employee that would notice me and come right over and sit with me. And of course, I was happy to entertain them and have a conversation and eat together. A part of me was like, I was kind of hoping to have a little bit of just time to decompress my brain and just to be alone for a second. Now, contrast that with your parents' generation, who are now losing their friends. A lot of them have outlived their friends, and maybe they even got moved because they're maybe closer to you. And so their circle of people, their social circle is really shrinking, or it has shrunk. And so that companionship becomes such a powerful, powerful need that is the most awkward to admit, and to say, I am lonely, I would love someone to visit with. Nobody does that. Nobody will actually share that. Nobody will actually admit to say that I'm lonely and I would love to talk to someone. And so in home care, of course, we have the trigger. We have, a lot of times the bathing or some sort of more physical assistance is the trigger to come in to provide the care, but the companionship becomes the much more apparent need that is being met through that process. So it's conversation, the shared meals, right? Meals, seniors tend to struggle with meals because most people don't enjoy eating alone. Meals are more often than not social occasions. We are sitting down with a friend, with a spouse, with our kids. I mean, like when we talk about getting together with a friend, right? We don't say, hey, let's just go sit on a park bench. Maybe, but a lot of times it's like, hey, let's go have coffee. Hey, let's grab lunch. Hey, I'd love to take you out to dinner, right? Meals are social occasions. And so when our caregivers are preparing a meal, many times, I would say most of our clients we work with, that caregiver is going to sit and share that meal with them. In some rare occasions where we have some very specific instructions that say otherwise, most of the time we're actually sharing, that caregiver sharing that meal with that client because it is a social occasion. Other things would be like taking a walk together, doing activities, maybe puzzles or maybe some kind of crafting or some of those kinds of things that are, again, those are social activities that we typically would do in a group or with a person or two. But it's just a presence. It's someone there who's a trusted individual that over time becomes not only the physical help, but it's that trusted presence, that trusted individual that can help alleviate some of the worry and some of the stress that's there, that's part of that loneliness. So loneliness is a major health risk for most people, for those living alone. And it's one of those things that most people are not like, hey, I'm lonely, let's figure this out, right? Like most people want to downplay that and they'll say, well, I'm okay, and just, do my things, do what I need to do. So sometimes the most important thing a caregiver provides is just simply being there, is just simply to show up. I know this with my mom. So my mom is not a extroverted person. She's not someone who desires a lot of connection with people, but she does need it in small doses. And I will notice her mood change, and she will maybe be a little weepy, or she might just be out of sorts a bit. And then it's amazing, even if I come over and if I pop in for 5 or 10 minutes on a day where I just don't have a lot of time to sit and chat, it's amazing how that will brighten her mood. And this is no different. And it's whether it's you, the daughter, kids, grandkids, or if it's a caregiver, right? It could be the neighbor, anyone, but that companionship is such an important piece of it. Number 4 is transportation and errands. So this is another trigger that tends to be one of the things that people will say, well, I can't, I've taken so much time off of work to get to the appointments and help mom make sure she's doing okay with her doctors. This is where we can help. So whether it's appointments, whether it's helping to grocery shop, and we can do both. We can go on the client's behalf and just go get stuff and bring it back. But many times it's actually more productive and better for their health for them to actually get out. So that grocery run becomes a social outing to actually go out and to do some shopping and maybe have lunch out somewhere, maybe grab coffee, and just turning that into more of what a normal routine might have been for someone maybe 3 years ago when they were driving themselves and they were doing some of these things with their friends. And so those are the different things. So appointments, of course, the challenge with appointments is that you can't time them exactly. So whatever the time they may be, there's traffic involved getting to and from depending on where somebody's at. And so for a daughter, for example, to take time off work, a lot of times you may not be able to take even a half day. You may have to take a whole day just to make sure you can get the person there, wait for, in the waiting room and get seen, and then come back and then bring the information back. So we could certainly do that. Pharmacy runs, right, to go pick up their prescriptions. So a lot of times there's a doctor's visit, and right after there might be a new set of prescriptions. And there's lots of new things available too, by the way, that you can have your prescriptions actually prepackaged and brought to the home, or have it shipped. So as long as someone's not on medications that are constantly changing, it may be a really good solution. But certainly we can help with that, and we can not only do those runs, we can incorporate it into an outing together with the client. Loss of driving equals loss of independence for most people. In the US, our driving privileges are such a freedom, right? It's an amazing thing that we don't have to plan our day around a bus schedule, around the train, times. But as a senior, at some point when they give up that ability to drive, it really can make them feel like they're just stuck and they don't have that independence. Support in this area really restores freedom for a lot of seniors to where they know. So even at a minimum, if somebody's there, if we have a caregiver coming in 3 times a week, well, they know on those 3 days, they already can be doing things. They could either send the caregiver to pick up things, or they can go with. And believe it or not, we've even had clients, clients who were farmers, and we would take them on the drive out in the country to see how the corn is growing, to see how the crops are coming up, because it's something they would do when they were younger, when they were still farming, and they were part of that, and they would enjoy seeing what's happening out in the fields. Here's kind of an idea of what a typical visit might look like. Okay, so just kind of like going from the start of the shift through the shift and to the end of the shift. Caregiver would arrive. We have a process. We have an app that the caregiver has on their phone. They're going to clock in through there, and they're going to have tasking in there in terms of what they need to do for that client. So that's very specific to that care plan that's written for that client. And so they're going to greet the client. They're going to check how they're feeling. They're going to have a conversation with them. And sometimes it's our system, right? Our system will notify us if someone's not clocked in. It's a fail safe on our end to make sure that, hey, do we even have a caregiver in there? right? Did someone show up for work that day? But most of those missed clock-ins, they happen because the caregiver gets busy talking to their client and they forget to clock in, right? Because they get there and they're like, hi, how are you? How's it going? Oh, it's so good to see you. And they get into conversation and they forget to clock in. And so sometimes we're texting them or we're calling them and we're saying, hey, Gail, are you at Mrs. Smith's? Oh, yeah, I forgot to clock in. So that's kind of that start. So then whatever that morning routine is, whatever those checklists are, right? Like maybe we're helping make a meal right away. Maybe we're actually showing up and right away we're going to help that person with their morning routine to go use the restroom, get cleaned up, help them get dressed and get ready for the day. So again, every client that we're working with, this is going to be a little bit different. We're going to prepare a meal. We're going to do some, cleanup of the meal for sure. And then meals, by the way, meals can actually be to where we're preparing not only for right now, today, we're making breakfast, but maybe we're actually going to make a meal that's large enough that we could portion and can be put in the fridge. Because let's say we're in there 3 days a week, and we could actually make the meals for all 7 days a week. So a lot of casseroles, a lot of different things can be made larger and can be split up and can be reheated by the client on the days that the caregiver is not actually coming. And then that companionship and that conversation. Once this is in place and running, it feels like support. It does not feel like an intrusion. It actually, most of the clients that we see, within about a week of care starting and just getting past the initial kind of introductory phase, they're thrilled with how things are going because they're getting the help. The house looks better, there's food and there's interaction, and it becomes a new normal for that person. And so what initially was like, this is awkward because I have to admit that I need help and I need help with these things, all of a sudden like, well, of course, it's like, sure, but this is really good because this caregiver is really amazing and we talk about all kinds of stuff. And then of course, all the things that I need, those are being helped with. How we customize the care plan or how we customize the care based on the individual. I keep saying this over and over, but every client we serve is different. That's number one. And so what we're doing for this client and this client and this client, they may look very different. We may onboard a client who's on hospice and needs heavy care and is 24-hour assistance, and we have multiple caregivers throughout the day, and they may be bedbound and maybe we're doing heavy cares. So that looks very different from this client who is just needing some help with meals and maybe running to the store, maybe running to appointments, maybe a bath visit once a week, or on one of those visits that we're doing, we're going to help them with a bath. So those two are very different, and that care plan is going to reflect that. Our nurse is going to be much more involved here, probably weekly or more often, to kind of make sure that the caregivers have all they need in terms of training and all the tasks that are being done there. Here it's going to be much lighter because this client is really not a heavy duty care needs client. They're more of a companionship and home support type of a client. And so that care plan is going to reflect that. But not only that, but things like preferences. What's a typical breakfast for someone? What's a typical lunch? What sorts of meals? What are their favorites? What are their absolute things they will not have, or just things that they would hate if we made for them? We want to take all that into account and write that into the care plan. Care plans are flexible, meaning what? Well, maybe we started this client with 3 days a week and we're just doing a little bit and just supporting them. And let's say we're in for 3 months and something happens. Maybe they have a stroke, and all of a sudden that's not nearly enough. They're going to need a lot more care. So maybe we go to 7 days a week. And so we would work with the family to help them really figure out and determine what's going to be realistic for the care and for the support that's needed. And so the flexibility of that care plan is going to adjust. Maybe this client in the middle is coming to us after surgery and rehab, and maybe they're needing a lot. Maybe we're in there 8 hours a day, maybe it's 12 hours a day because they need quite a bit of help, including helping them to do their exercises that they got from PT when they discharged. Now, after a month of care, they're a lot stronger and they're doing so much better. They're actually having a conversation about reducing the hours that they have us in there. And maybe they get to a point where they don't need any care at all. Now, it is true that most people, when they have a significant health setback, such as like a fracture, right? They break a hip and they have to have surgery. Nobody really recovers 100% to where they started before this happened. Usually there's a bit of a degradation to the actual functioning from where they started. And so most people will still retain some services in, but they don't have to. And so the services we provide, they're totally voluntary in terms of whether somebody wants us in there or not. And so let's say after a couple of months, somebody's feeling really great and they're like, you know what, I think I'm doing good. I don't even need any care anymore and I'm going to stop. And that's your prerogative, and that's something that you can do. So the flexibility in the care plans is really an important factor in all of this. So the care plan and the care that we provide will change over time, as obviously, hopefully I'm making that clear. So someone who's on services with us for a long time because they're doing just a little bit, as their health and condition declines over the years, it could be 2 years later that they're like, oh, you know what, we probably should add more services. We probably need a little more help. Those plans can adjust. So it could start with just a few hours. It could start with a lot. It could go down. It could go up. The point is, you have a lot of flexibility. We work really well with the family to help give you feedback as to how things are going. Being very clear when we feel that there's not enough care, that more needs to be there, and also letting you know that we might have plenty of care or too much care in place, and so if they wanted to reduce some of that care, that might be appropriate and that might be okay. And in some cases, families will say, oh sure, let's think about that, or sometimes they'll say, you know, we just really like having someone there and making sure that if mom on a whim decides she wants something from Wendy's or from McDonald's, I know they're not the most healthy options, but it might be great. Sometimes a great burger, doesn't matter where it comes from, it's a great burger. So anyway, let me talk about common fears that come up when people think about home care. So number one is stranger in a home. It's the number one fear from the care receiver aspect. Clients or potential clients, prospects as we would call them, sometimes really have a lot of fear over that. Like, you're gonna bring somebody in here, I don't know this person, how is this going to work? I always bring it up and I always talk about it because it's something that once the care starts, once the care was introduced, care is fantastic. The response and the feedback, the client will love their caregiver, but they are apprehensive about who this person is. They're a stranger, how is this going to work? And so number one, we will guarantee a match. Meaning what? Meaning that if that caregiver that we provide is not a great fit for whatever reason, we will replace them. Most of the time when this happens, it's usually a personality issue. And like, we're all unique individuals. And so with some people, we get along great. With some people, like, I just can't even find anything to talk about with that person. Like, it may not even be like, we all feel bad because it's like, well, we should like everybody and everybody should like us. Well, no, but we're unique and we certainly fit better with some people and we just don't fit as well with others. And so if that's a situation that comes up for some reason, we will replace that caregiver. Now, we give the same right to the caregiver, right? Because we don't want the caregiver to be in a situation where they feel very uncomfortable, because caregivers, believe it or not, really, when they apply for this work, they want to help people. And so they don't want to, they're always nervous about going into a new scenario because, yeah, sometimes they may be working with a client who may have dementia and may be challenging, and they want to know that they're doing a good job. And so if they're in a situation where they don't think they're a good fit for a client, we give them that ability to say, you know what, I'd rather be reassigned somewhere else. And so ultimately the point I'm making is that the fear of who that caregiver is, or that stranger that's going to come in, is we want to remove that, and we want to help make sure that we get as quickly as possible from, here is a stranger that we're introducing you to, and wow, she is amazing. I love having her, and we are having all kinds of conversations, and we are having a great time together. And that's that relationship building that starts very quickly. And all of a sudden, the care plan is being managed, taken care of. But not only that, like, there's just an excitement that this caregiver is amazing and she's coming and she's going to help me with all these things. Number two fear is losing privacy. So I'm going to have people in the home, right? And sometimes the situation is where we're coming in to provide care for the husband, and the wife is there, and we're actually kind of giving her a break from the things that she's doing for her husband. And so the number of people coming into the home and the level of care can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes, and so that privacy aspect can certainly go down a little bit because you've got somebody else in the home. And it's a new normal, and it's an amazing experience to have that. But yes, you will have someone else in the home, and so the ability to not have any intrusion, or to where it's like it's just me or just the couple, that certainly is different because you've got another person there. And fear number 3 is losing control. It's the idea that I'm going to have somebody coming here and they're going to be telling me what to do. They're going to be telling me how to do things. They're going to be, making me eat things that I don't like, or they're going to be bossing me around in my own home. And it's just not true. As a client, you remain in charge. As a family, what we would call point of contact, or someone who's kind of our quarterback, like, you are in charge. If mom's receiving care, she is in charge. She can make changes. She can let us know. We're one of our worst critics, and we want to have a very open door to you to say, hey, we're not thrilled about this. How can we make this better? Because Minnesota nice is only so good. We want to have an honest conversation. So if there's anything in our care that is not meeting or exceeding expectations, we want to know about it, because most of the time, if we're not hearing it, we're assuming that things are okay. You are in charge, and you get to call the shots, and you get to tell us how you want things to go. And so, just to put those fears at ease, giving you kind of an idea when home care typically starts. I've kind of alluded to this, but typical triggers are either maybe there's a big change in condition, maybe it's a fall, maybe somebody's coming out of rehab, maybe it's somebody who is, like I said earlier, is actually going, well, it'd be wise to maybe avoid the fall if at all possible. And so I know this is a risky situation. It would be great to have someone help to make sure that that's not the case. Sometimes the laundry is, way down in the basement. For someone who's 85 or 89, carrying that laundry basket up and down those stairs is now a major hazard. And so having that help is going to be a big deal. So sometimes it's maybe increasing forgetfulness. So maybe some dementia creeping in. That's caused the concern, right? So a lot of what we've done in this kind of series, this whole playlist, is talking about all the different signs that are there. And so this would be a family maybe saying, there's just enough there with some of the forgetfulness and dementia. We're concerned about making sure that things are okay. And then there's family burnout. So potentially where maybe something happened and maybe you and your siblings got over involved, and you're helping, you're doing all this stuff, and pretty soon you're like, man, I can't keep it together. Like I'm really burning out. I can't really function. And so that may be a trigger to say, okay, we really need to, because short term we can all kind of spring into action and get things done. Long term becomes a whole different scenario when you have to keep it together and do your home things and take care of your family and now run over here, and we only have so many hours, and we all need, it's like our phones, right? You plug your phone in at night to recharge it. Why? Well, because it's going to run out of battery and die if you don't. Well, we have kind of a battery too. You can push and push and push, but sleep, downtime, time to just unwind and relax and have with your family is important. And so if you're not having that time because you're so busy caregiving, high likelihood that you're in burnout or maybe just about to get into burnout. And so that may be a trigger as well. Just to kind of bring everything into a landing here. So home care is not giving up independence. Home care is remaining independent with a little help in the areas where there's difficulty there. So maybe it's bathing, maybe it's the laundry downstairs, maybe it's stripping the bed and changing the linens, right? It's not losing control. It's not being, taken care of or feeling like you're the princess, you're being pampered. I have to have people in, right? No, it's preserving your independence and preserving your ability to live on your own terms where you want to be, and preserving your own routine versus trying to go somewhere and fit into a routine that's already existent there. Does that make sense? We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have a conversation with you and help better explain this to you, help you to better understand what care looks like, how the care might look like for your specific situation. And even if it's not that, even if you just want to ask some questions about care, about housing, about what's around the area, we'd love to have that conversation with you. We are a relationship company, so we create relationship between clients and caregivers. We form great relationships between us as an organization and our caregivers. They love working for us. We love having them because they're amazing people. And we love forging relationships with people out in the community, whether it's the referral providers who send us people being discharged and just refer clients to us, or you as potential people out in the community who want to learn more and want to understand and want to maybe get a little bit ahead of what potential decisions might be coming the road for you. So reach out to us. I'd love comments if you have questions about these specific topics, or if there's a topic that you'd like to see a video on, we'd love to do that. So until next time, take care.